Welcome everyone. We're going to give you a second to log in, and while we're getting ready, just make note that this webinar is video and audio have been turned off. We're using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to share questions, and so you know this event is being recorded. We've got a bunch of people on tonight. We got over 48 people already on the line, a lot of old familiar names, a lot of return people. So excited about that. Oh, and we have someone with their hand up. Let's see. Susan Payne. Hi, Susan. Do you have something to say? Your hand was up.
Hi. No, just that I used to live up there. I grew up in City Island.
Okay. Well, we're glad to have you on, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, it looks like most people have logged on now. So we usually do these little slides at the start. So I'm just going to go through, introduce you to our board of directors. And then we also have honorary trustees and staff from the museum. We like to thank our supporters. We're very lucky to have, hundreds of members, many of whom are on this call tonight, as well as institutional donors and individual donors who've made extra contributions. If you haven't done so yet, we encourage you to go to cityislandmuseum.org where you can make a donation. You can register for the final one webinar. I forgot to update that slide. We have one webinar left in this series. You could access previous webinars. Everything is on YouTube. And then you could also visit our gift shop. Follow us on social media. And here it is, the final webinar. If you want to take down the link, otherwise it'll be sent out in an email. The final webinar will be in 2 weeks on the America's Cup past and present. Okay. So I think many of you know the 4 women that I am joined on this call with tonight. 2 of whom I have trouble with saying their names because I called them Miss DiMaio and Miss Ellwanger for so many years that Judy had to tell me multiple times, stop calling me Miss DiMaio. So I'm actually going to just ask to unmute you all. We did this just because for ease tonight with everyone being on. So we're going to start with a little slideshow of pictures that people have submitted that we have on Facebook. If you haven't yet, check out the City Island Museum's Facebook page. We have a bunch of photos, including ones from PS17. And it was hard because my dad especially sent me over 200 photos and there's only so much time both for this PowerPoint and then also for me to put it into the PowerPoint. But so for the next 3 minutes, we're going to start with an overview of some pictures from the school to help set the scene of what the location was, who the people are, before we go into some memories and talking about specific topics from PS17. All right. And if I haven't mentioned this already, if you go into your right-hand side of your screen in the view mode, if you go to side-by-side gallery, you're able to see both the pictures and the people, and that can make it easier for you to be able to both see us and to see the pictures. So the first slide is just a picture of the school building, as well as right now, which is home to the Nautical Museum, which is part of the reason that we're hosting this specific topic, because we even have, when we are open, we have a room dedicated to classrooms, to what it used to look like there.
Oh, God.
Not good, not good. Oh, Lord. 100 years ago.
I think that's what it said when I was looking it up, yeah.
Oh my goodness, look at all these. Oh, my Lord.
Just to set the stage, this is the class of 1965, and these were the movies my father took at
Mm.
graduation. There we are.
Got another graduation photo.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, these-
Class of 1958. A bunch
Ah,
of
There's-
teachers that I've heard a lot of times
Teachers,
mentioned
yeah.
by everyone.
I think they were all there for 40 years.
man.
Started and they finished.
Mhm.
Oh, my goodness. Look at Mrs. Dill. It's not the way she looked.
Class of 1944, the 8th grade class. Looks like a small class size there.
Mhm.
That was Miss Mulligan.
This is the early schoolyard. I thought this was interesting, right next to the old Kyle Purdy shipyard. So right next to each other. That's some ballerinas.
Oh,
And then of course, Ena, who is both a student, a teacher, and then a principal at PS 175. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing. All right.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone to the 4th webinar. And I'd like to ask each of you to introduce yourselves to everyone and just give a little bit of background about who you are and what brings you onto this specific topic tonight, starting with Miss Ena Ellwanger.
maiden name Ena Ellwanger. When I thought that I had to do this, I thought back and I said, how far back am I going? And I started as a kindergarten student at PS 17, and that had to be, I can't say it. I'm having difficulty saying 1944, 45. And that's when I started in kindergarten with Mrs. Ruby Dill. I remember the farmyard animals, the wooden farmyard animals, and that's it. Then 1st grade with Mrs. Berg. And I remember getting weekly readers every week. And I remember going home because we had to read them every day in class. And I think I remember this distinctly. There was a word in this one particular reader that I couldn't read. So I went home and told my mother I had had school. I'm never going back. I'm stupid. That's it. And the word was elephant. I have never forgotten that. And I remember Mrs. Berg did math by taking a pencil and tapping it on the radiator. And you had to count how many times you heard that number. So that was the 1st grade. Then the 2nd grade, something happened because I don't think some of us completed the 2nd grade. I think for some reason, whatever it is, some were moved from the 2nd grade to the 3rd grade because it might have been a Board of Ed situation. So that kind of skipped. And I think the 3rd grade was Miss Speck. I'm not sure. Then we went into the 4th and 5th grade with Mrs. Donnelly and Mrs. Wilson. 6th grade with Miss Culcullen, 7th grade with Mrs. Duncan, who lived on Judy Street, Buckley Street. And of course, Miss Mulligan in the 8th grade. Mary P. Fitzpatrick was the principal. And that's my whole life story from the 8th grade. Now I can go on forever. And then of course, when what happened was when I went to high school and then college, and I finished quickly because I was getting engaged. I was getting married in July 8th. So I had graduated from college, I guess, in January. And Miss Fitzpatrick called and said that the 1st grade teacher, Mrs. Wilma Moss, her name was, she was there for a very short period of time, was pregnant, and they needed somebody quick in a hurry to take the class until June. So I took that class. I didn't get to my college graduation because I was working, teaching. And the funniest thing, and I'm going to end it at that because I can go on forever. Miss Fitzpatrick was not, teachers at that time could not wear slacks. You wore gloves, you wore a hat, no makeup. And that's what you did. Plus, it was looked upon, she wasn't very favorable if you were getting married. And here I was getting married, finishing in June, getting married 2 weeks later, a week later, July 8th. But I had to get a blood test in order to get your wedding certificate, as did my husband, who was in Tennessee at the time because he had gotten a degree in chemical engineering, but had never worked. He had gone down to Oak Ridge and became a nuclear engineer, so on. But he was down, he had to come up and we had to get these blood tests so I could get a half day off to go into the city and get these blood tests because they're not open on the weekend. So my husband came, and remember, he had gone to Brooklyn Tech City College. He had worked part-time as a longshoreman for Domino Sugar on the dock. Okay. Now you come to the principal of the school at that time, who received gifts, received people. And what you did was were served on a tray with beautiful bone china cup of tea, and you had to have that. So now I had my fiance, who, that's why I gave you the background. Last thing he ever drank was tea, especially from a lovely saucer cup. And she sat there and she talked to him and asked him questions more than my father did. She wanted to know what he intended to do with his life, what kind of living he was going to make, what he saw as his future. And then she allowed me to have that half day off so I could go get my blood test. That is very brief memory of PS. There you go. Because otherwise I'll just sit here and talk for the next. Judy and Karen know that, and so does Bob. Yeah. I'll pass the gavel to someone.
Okay.
Judy, I guess.
Karen, you're up, and then Judy, and then Barbara.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lauren. Always hard to follow, Ena. Always hard act to follow, but I'll shorten it a little bit. So I'm Karen Rauhauser Nani. Any of you who went to school when I did know me as Karen Rauhauser. And I went kindergarten through 8 to PS 17, and then I won't tell all the teachers, but had Mrs. Dill, who Ena just mentioned, for my kindergarten teacher, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it was like in kindergarten back then. And then was blessed to have Mrs. Ellwanger. Judy and I both had her for 7th grade. And we graduated, and like all City Islanders, still true, went off for high school, etc. Then, but always lived on the island. And then when I married Paul Nani and had 2 sons, Roger and Mark, wonderfully, they attended then PS 175 or now PS 175. And I was blessed. I knew it, but it was a special thing to return with my sons to the school that was now being led by my 7th grade teacher, Ena Ellwanger. And we could not have been more thrilled. And I wound up being co-president of the PTA with Debbie Call Salacan for almost 7 years. Also with Donna Kinford. And so Roger was there from 89 to 98. So he was the 8th grade graduating class of 98. And Mark was there from 91 to 2000. So his class started the new millennium. But it was, we'll talk more about it. But back when Judy and I went, you saw some of the photos of the class of 1965. What's sort of important to remember is half the kids went to PS 17 and half the kids went to St. Mary's Star of the Sea. So I hope maybe we want to give a shout out to anyone listening who did go to St. Mary's Star of the Sea, because it was a pretty, evenly divided. So I'll turn it over so Judy and Barbara get a chance to chat, but we'll be returning with some more memories as we go along. But I hope you all enjoyed the movies. As you can imagine, having your father there, Ducky Rauhauser, shooting movies of your graduation was totally mortifying back then. But now, of course, they're like these cherished movies. I'm so glad he did it. So hope you enjoyed some of the shots.
You're up, Ms. DiMaio.
Judy? Okay, I'm
hard.
Julia Fitzmaurice DiMaio, also known as mostly Judy DiMaio around City Island. And
My family moved to City Island in the spring of 1958. And the reason that we moved to City Island was that my father had been appointed as custodial engineer of PS 17. And when we moved here, I started in the first grade class. I was in Mrs. Burke's class. And it was there that I first met Karen Rauhauser, now Karen Rauhauser Nani, and we became good friends, still friends to this day. We met up, we lost contact in high school, and then we reconnected because we both went to Hunter College.
That's right.
And we reconnected there, and we've been friends ever since, all along. I also remained on City Island, raised my family here, and had the very good fortune to be a teacher at PS 175 for 25 years.
Sounds like such a long time, Judy.
It really
God,
is.
25 years.
I know. And I guess now it's Barbara's turn.
That's right.
Okay, well, I moved to City Island in 1950, followed my cousin who was a year ahead of me in PS 17. And so I came at the end of the 4th grade, Miss Donnelly, then went on through the same ones that Ena said. My favorite teacher was in 6th grade, Miss Cullen. I just loved her. She was an amazing teacher and an inspiration to me. I was a teacher for many years as well. I've had a couple of careers, but my experience at PS 17 was just absolutely amazing. I absolutely loved school. I loved my class. And as Karen mentioned, it was really true. Our class were friends with the corresponding class at St. Mary's. So we were very, very good friends back and forth, and after school, running here, running there together. So that's how I started.
That's great. Yeah, I love the full circle that sort of happens with everyone from the PTA to also like Judy, you being brought on to City Island from your dad having the job as custodian. We already have someone in the chat saying that if you were lucky on cold days that he would bring them to the boiler, and we have some pictures of that actually for later on. But first I want to talk a little bit more about the teachers. If you could just sort of talk a little bit about the teachers who stood out. You know, we had the 4 or 5 who were on that, you know, you were saying were there for about 40 years.
Well, when teachers started to teach at that time, that's you stayed. Whatever school you were in, that's where you stayed for that length of time. But there was one thing I remember specifically when talking about this, when I had that first few months of teaching at PS 17, all those teachers were still there. And the youngest one, someone new had come on, Catherine O'Malley. And of course, she was young. She had to be in her 30s at the time. But I remember during the lunch hour, you all ate lunch together. So now the teacher's lunchroom on the 2nd floor in the back. And I remember the first time I went into the lunchroom, I sat down. I was promptly told, now remember all these teachers I had as teachers of my own, I was promptly told that that wasn't my seat. That seat was reserved. Every teacher had her own seat. And I say her because there were no, well, we had men teachers, I think a shop teacher later on at PS 17. And also the coffee cups were all placed in a certain place on the shelf in that room. And I can remember sitting there saying, oh, thank God I'm getting married because I'm never coming back to New York. I'm living in Tennessee, which of course I couldn't do because it was at the time of the civil rights movement. And when I applied for a job down in Clinton, Tennessee, which was near Oak Ridge, I was told that I was from New York and I would not be accepted. They would not accept my applications. Oh yeah, that was quite an interesting experience. But at any rate, the teachers were, they had, oh, it was interesting. They had their own friendship and you were amazed by this, you know, here, look at this. These teachers were laughing, joking together. It was an excellent experience. I learned a lot, especially from the principal. Mary P. Fitzpatrick still is in my heart and my mind. It was excellent. Anything? I don't know.
Lauren, can you all hear me? Sorry, my laptop froze up, so I went in on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Karen.
we can hear you. Yep.
sorry. Did you want me to comment on Miss Fitzpatrick? I have one funny story. If I think it's funny.
Yeah.
All right.
Please.
The story I have, I think, and I missed a little bit. We were all absolutely terrified over students, but were we terrified parents? She in a way that is probably not possible anymore. Ena knows. And the story my father used to tell is that there was some issue along the way, and they had a PTA meeting that drew a lot of attention. And I don't know, it was unusual for my father to go to a PTA meeting, but he went to this one and he always remembered it. Something got up, and there was something he didn't know the fit. And a parent got up and started talking about curriculum. So this would have been in the 60s, late 50s, 60s. And a parent got up and started saying something about curriculum. And he always said, Miss Fitzpatrick stood up after the parents and put up her finger with the long fingernail and the nail polish and said, you raise them, we teach them. End discussion. I don't think she said end of discussion, but it was clear that it was the end of the discussion. Parents were not to be voicing issues of curriculum. That was for the educators. So there was a very clear line of division, and that's unlike now with an active involvement of parents. But my father always remembered that. He said no one said a word for the rest of the meeting.
I have something, I'm going to let Judy and Barbara talk, because I just thought of something else that I had said that I didn't think I should say about Mary P. Fitzpatrick, other than she always wore her bracelets. And I still, to this day, when I was in an important meeting or something, always put on my charm bracelet so that when you walk down the hall, they could hear you, could always hear Fitzpatrick. But I told this story the last time. Is Billy Muller listening? Because if he is, Billy, I apologize for this. But every Thursday we had assemblies, and the kindergarten through 8th grade were at the assemblies, and the kindergarten chairs were placed all upstairs in the auditorium. And Mary P. Fitzpatrick would start the assembly, and you could hear a pin drop. Now, I had to be in the 7th or 8th grade at the time, and all the kindergarten little people were sitting in their chairs, and it was very quiet. And all of a sudden, this little boy in the front row stood up and said, I don't like you. And I thought the world had come to an end. The child definitely was going to die. There was no question in my mind. And this child, Billy Muller, I don't know if you remember it, but it was Billy Muller, who I just love him with a passion. But I always remember him as being that kindergarten child who said that to her. And I don't know what happened after that. I think I blocked out everything after that because I was worried.
Yeah.
At any rate.
And what about Ms. Dillon? I feel like there were a couple of stories that you guys had told. I don't know, Judy or Barbara, if you have stories of other teachers who were there.
I don't have a story about Mrs. Dill. Miss Fitzpatrick, I remember with the bracelet and coming down the hall, and you would hear her coming.
That's right.
And when she would approach her classroom, everyone would stand and say, good morning, Miss Fitzpatrick. And then we'd wait to be told to sit down. Sometimes she would say, you may sit down. And sometimes she would just talk to the teacher.
Right.
And she would wait until she would leave to tell you to sit down. But I have a story I'd actually like to tell about Ena, who was, I would have to say, my favorite teacher, because she was an inspiration to us. And I don't remember, Ena, if we were your first class or your second class there.
Time hasn't got a concept for me.
Okay, so I think we might have been your first class. I don't know if Karen knows or not, but I know we had some tough kids in our class. But you were very good at handling those kids. And I was so impressed because a lot of other teachers weren't. And they used to get very frustrated with them and throw them out, send them to the office. But you handled them very well. But you also motivated us. But one of the things that I do remember was a story that you told about your father. And I think I have this right. You told us that your father jumped ship as a young man and came to America, And you also told us that you could do anything you wanted to do as long as you worked hard at it. And at that time, my goal was to be a teacher, but to me, it was almost an unattainable goal at the moment. But when you said that, it made me believe that I could reach this goal of becoming a teacher. And I said, because you said you did it because you were told you could do it. And so I did it because you gave me that inspiration to lead me there. So I think that's the job of a teacher, but not all teachers do that. So I thank you for that.
That's when we got into 175, I had, it came out that we were in the top 10% in the city. And I can remember the chancellor walking in on us one day unexpected because he wanted to see this school, but it was because of the teachers and the students and the parents, the whole community together. But I worked with some fantastic teachers, some fantastic.
Yeah, maybe, I know we had talked about that for later, but it seems fitting right now. I mean, yeah, I just hear, even in our pre-conversation, so much of the culture that you described from PS 175 or at PS 17 at 175. So if you guys just want to talk a little bit more about how, like, lessons that you took from your time at 17 to PS 175 and what that was like there.
Okay, well, I would say it was a very similar culture in that we were a small town school in that everyone knew everyone else. You knew you knew every child in the school. As the teacher, it was your job. Ena made that clear to me and to all the teachers. You were to know every child, and your children were not just the children in your class. All the children in the school were your children. So you were supposed to make sure that everyone was okay. We also knew all the parents knew us and the staff. And so the culture was always friendly. It was a friendly, safe environment, both schools. And I think those are, strong similarities that carried over, because I felt the same way being in PS 17 as I did teaching in 175. It was the culture of the school was that we were safe. It was an environment that nurtured learning and wanted a connection with the community. And I think it was a real advantage to teach in a place like that and to be a student in a place like that.
I think one of the greatest things of 175, and I think of it as PS 17 that transposed, everyone was a teacher. We talk about your father. He just impressed me incredibly much as a custodial engineer. And he truly did. In many ways, even on Friday afternoons when we had to go home through his, yes, at any rate. But everyone was a teacher. Your faculty, your staff, or your dietitians, everyone taught the children. And that was our job. That's what we did. That was our purpose. I loved it, so.
I like that you also brought, I don't want to use the word old-fashioned tradition, but I like that you brought things that I remembered PS 17 to 175. Music, the kids had to sing. These were now 90s and the new millennium kids, and they weren't always so anxious to sing, but you taught them to sing, whether it was morning exercises, graduation, even those boys that really didn't want to sing had to sing. You had Adele playing piano, had the students playing piano. You had the wonderful shows, the kindergarten shows, things that kind of like I had remembered from 17 that we put on plays, and you brought that with you for that next generation. And they couldn't have exactly, this is where what we say we missed was the loss of the what do you call it, life skills. Because Judy and I did about well in sewing. We were at the bottom of the class, but we knew how to sew a button, a hem, a seam, and I always carried that forward in life. And I was glad however badly I did it, at least I knew how to do it. And by the time my son was there, some of those skills, obviously, sewing and stuff like that. But Adele would teach, God rest her soul, would teach them cooking, would try to do, different teachers would do some of life skills with them. So at least they were exposed to that. But I always, you brought that with you, Ena.
That was
I
a
remember,
art you were talking about.
Let's let Barbara talk. Barbara, go ahead.
I remember in
I know.
it was the first time I was really introduced to art and music formally. The art consisted of little cards that Miss Wilson passed out with a picture on it, and she would tell us who had done the picture and that it was a painting or a watercolor. And she would describe when they did it. There were pictures, but some from the Renaissance. I can't remember any in particular, although I think one was Mondrian with the red, yellow, and blue. And I remember loving those sessions. And then she would play a record. And I think it had to have been a record that was prepared to teach children music, because it only had little excerpts from it. It had the Long Ranger song, you know, that overture, William Tell overture. And then there was another one by Saint Son. I mean, to this day, I can still remember the names of these songs. It's so strange. But that was my first introduction to it. And then there was a 6th grade level for it and a 7th grade level. But that was the first introduction of art.
Well, I think also in this day and age, under the teacher contracts, because I don't even know if when I started there were contracts for teachers. I don't, but when I became principal, I certainly learned. But, I remember in PS 17, the principals didn't have preparation periods. But on Friday afternoons, when I look back, Friday afternoons is when you had what Barbara was saying, your music and your art. And the teachers would have an opportunity. We had a Victrola. Remember, I'm talking 1944 and up. You got to go back that far. On the Victrola, the teachers would play whatever class, especially the older grades, the music that Barbara was talking about, and you learned about this is the symphony that Schubert wrote but never finished. You learned and you learned how to hum all these things. And you also had an opportunity for the other period in the afternoon to do some kind of artwork. So it gave these teachers that kind of free time, and we learned. And Barbara, you're 1000% right. I remember all that classical music, and it was so important. We teach me. I don't know what they teach anymore. I know. I'm not getting into. I won't do that.
Remember the
I won't do that.
Waltz by Strauss, by Strauss. I mean,
That's right. All of those. No, exactly right. And that was Friday afternoons, and that I think it was just a preparation for teachers. But really, the music that we were introduced to, I know we're not teaching it to the majority. Well, I don't know what we're doing this year. We're not teaching anything, I don't think, but that's a whole nother ballgame. Don't want to talk about that right now. Get off.
Well, Ena, you brought the arts to our school through our liaison with Lincoln Center.
Yeah.
And the children were exposed to ballet, to theater, to instruments, and it was really a wonderful experience for the children. So when we got to go to Lincoln Center, and when the artists came in to work with the children, that was an experience that was wonderful for everyone, not just the children, but the teachers as well.
We were fortunate. The Lincoln Center picked up 5 schools, 2 in the city and 3 in Westchester and 1 in Orange County. And I was very fortunate at that time because there was an excellent school called Harlem School for the Performing Arts. And they were kind of having all kinds of chaos in their building. And I was very fortunate to hire 2 teachers, music people from that school, one of them being Joyce DeGrasse, who combined her ability to teach math and music. It was incredible. She was so very creative and so musically gifted. So I had that one, and Larry Del Casal, the guitar person who then moved on to Ossining High School, got all kinds of awards before he retired from there. But we were fortunate to have that, as I said, being one of that 5 that a group of 5, Lincoln Center chose us. I was very happy with that. But I had also, well, anyway, fought the district to get it for me. So it worked. It worked. And I enjoyed it. But look at what the teachers did. They had to go down on a Saturday occasionally, no pay, no anything, to Lincoln Center on Saturdays just to experience and to learn. And all the teachers came out and did this. There was no pay. That's what I mean about the faculty staff that I worked with. How could you lose? Couldn't.
I'm really reminiscing about the morning exercises. Like every morning we sat, we as a community all together with the
Right.
piano playing. And then I'm also thinking about color guard, and me and Nicolette Lautrant, who's also on the board of the museum, served on the color guard, I think from 6th to 8th grade. And it felt like such a huge responsibility. And I remember you'd have to be silent and, line up and everything. And
Well, it was important. That was that was part of again, what Judy said, the culture, but it was also a teaching experience. Also, it gave us an opportunity in the morning to talk to the entire student body and parents who were welcome to come, not a problem. And you kind of learned what was going to happen during the day or what was happening or whatever. So it was an excellent experience. As again, I see things that could be improved and should be improved, but while we were going along, we were living sometimes by the seat of our pants, but it worked.
Going back to PS 17, we also had our Friday morning performances, and we had to dress. The girls had to wear dark skirts and white blouses.
Yep.
And the boys had to wear dark pants and a white shirt and a tie. And
Yep.
we would learn traditional music.
Yeah.
And we would learn songs that we would not have ordinarily have learned, on our own, maybe at home. So it was an opportunity for a learning experience that was really exceptional and probably didn't go on in most schools.
yeah,
I just see, Lauren, you put a picture of a group of students coming out of the front of PS 17, right?
yes, this was a special year project that Barbara was talking about.
Well,
Yeah.
Barbara, I see my brother at the end of the line.
Yes, you do. And
Oh
that
my God.
would you like me to talk about this now, Lauren, or wait till later?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, well, this is us leaving PS 17, going on a field trip. And we visited, well, to start the story off, we were part of a special project that our district received from the Board of Education of the city, I guess. And it was called New York City, A Gift of the Sea. And during the whole year, we did things related to City Island's nautical history. The first thing that happened was we got to be pen pals with a cargo ship. It was called the Extavia. And the captain was Captain Cushman, and he used to write us letters of where his ship traveled, things that went on the ship, what it was like living on the ship, the places he went to, the kind of cargo he carried. And so we learned all about different kinds of ships. That was part of it. There's another picture, Lauren, with Ena's, well, that one has George Manns in the front.
Oh, yeah, there he is, right.
And that's Johnny Ulmer.
Johnny Elma, yeah. Oh, my God. There's Johnny Elma.
So we went, we had to learn all about ships, shipbuilding, sail making, and we actually told our sister school, PS 71 in Pelham Bay. We went there one time, and then they came up to PS 17 one time, and we talked to them all about what we had learned. And this was at, there's Johnny right up front. Do you see him holding the anchor?
No, I think he's blowing into a horn to make.
Oh, he is, yes. That's Alan Henshaw holding.
That's Alan Henshaw. There's George Manns. Oh, my God.
Right? And Randy Peterson. And
Oh, and there's
Diana Nye.
Isn't that Joanne Nye? I was just going to say, there's your aunt, Joanna Nye.
Right.
Here
And she's standing
next to Mary P. Fitzpatrick.
Correct. And in the back, you can see the top of her head. That's Miss Mulligan.
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see. There's Mary P. There's Joanna Nye. Oh, there's,
Marty Frank is over on the right. Nicholas
Oh.
Lilly is the furthest right.
okay.
Bobby Gilbert is right in front of Mary Fitzpatrick.
Okay, yeah, okay. And who?
Camilla Rivolino, all these names.
My
Yeah,
dad
no,
is sending me a text via my mom to correct us. It's actually my Aunt Diana, not my Aunt Joanne.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. That's right.
That's Diana. We had a really neat time that year. It was a
Look
unique.
at that. There it
experience.
is.
We felt the importance of, they had a photographer follow us the whole year, going to all these different sites. And it culminated in a play at the end of the year. The play was in May, and Miss Beck wrote the play. The narrator for the play was on the left there, Jeffrey Stoll, and Barbara Ralph is the Statue of Liberty. And we all had things to say. That was all of us sitting on the stage upstairs in the auditorium, and we all had something to say. All of our parents were there, all the teachers were there. And Lauren, the picture with that's the one.
Yeah.
It was such a big deal. On the left that night for that performance is Dr. Loratan, who was the superintendent of schools.
That's right.
Next to him is Captain Cushman from the Xtavia. He came for that event. Then's Mary P. Fitzpatrick, and next to her is, I believe it was Captain Cushman's wife. And they were our guests of honor. And got the picture with the guys in front singing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
No.
Judy's story. Well, that might be all of the ones that are up there, but it was a fabulous year. So what happens, we talk now 50 years later, I start volunteering and working at the museum. And I think it was Tommy who came to me. I was setting up the schoolroom. That was my project. And Tommy came to me and he hands me this file with pictures and writing. And all of a sudden it starts turning my head and it clicks. Like, oh my God, this is what our whole 8th grade project. And it was in pieces all over the place. And what I did was I put them all in order. We had all the captions that Miss Speck typed on this crazy typewriter she had, and put it all in the book chronologically. We had sail samples, we had rope samples, we had weather flags that we created. It was just incredible. So now, sitting on a desk in the schoolroom in the museum, you will find a big binder that has the whole story of that whole year in it. It was fabulous. It was something that for me was inspiring. It instilled such pride. But one of the things that stands out most, we're doing all these trips. We went to Ratsy's, we went to Valentine's Sales, we went to Nevins Shipyard, and we went to United Boatworks. One of the things that stands out most is that every person who was showing us all the steps in the shipbuilding, wetting the wood so you could mold it, and the lady with a sewing machine putting this huge sail together, every one of them was so anxious and so proud to tell us what they were doing and how it fit in with the rest of the project that they were working on. And they took the time and had such interest in us. And that really stuck with me. And then, of course, I wound up with such a pride for City Island and everything about our nautical heritage.
I love that story
Barbara
so much.
Hoffman introduced me to the museum and Barbara Delancic, and the rest is history.
Power of school, the power of education. There he is. One of the custodial engineers you're ever going to meet. Truly. I met a lot of
him too.
No. When I worked at 175, they had this new boiler system, and they would send in a lot of younger custodians who had to learn about the system so that they could move on to the bigger schools where there was more money. Mr. Fitzmaurice was incredible. He is an example of what I said, that everyone in the school is a teacher. And because he took pride. Barbara, exactly what you were saying. He took pride in his job. And I met a lot of custodians, some who, 2 or 3, I think, who were fantastic. And 1 or 2, I hit the New York Times was one. So, I mean, total difference but he was incredible. He was the epitome of it. My dog wants to go to bed, see, so just ignore him.
You know,
God, help me, only in my life.
all right, I think I love that, Barbara, you wove that the nautical tradition and the connection between both PS 17 and especially on into PS 75, especially with the fleet weekends. And Tommy's on, I hope, I forgot the name of that wonderful historic boat that he got rides on for all the 8th graders and 7th graders for many years. But in addition to the wonderful historic connection, I'm watching our clock, you could also get into trouble because of the proximity to the water. And it's perfect that Judy's father picture of Judy, I agree. Judy is going to tell about the time that members of the class of 65 got into big trouble because of the connection to the water. Go ahead, Judy.
That's true. Well, we'll share that story, Karen, in a minute, but I just wanted to mention these, the boilers here, because our PS 17 was run on coal. So there were 3 big boilers in the boiler room that looked just like this. They were identical. And I don't know how many times a year, but I would say at least 4 or 5 times a year, a huge load of coal was delivered to the school, and it was sent down a chute. And my father and his helper would shovel it into the coal room. And then you see the shovel here, they would shovel it then into the boiler. And this is what heated the school and gave us hot water. And so this was, part of what, his job was, a responsibility to keep the school hot and to keep the hot water, amongst many other jobs.
Yeah.
He wore many hats for this job. But, and one of the other things was, but speaking about, again, PS 17 and PS 175, another similarity in that everyone was like family. So as Ena said, they were all friendly. And I don't know too much about the Friday afternoons. I was banished because I was a student and a child. But I know that some of the teachers would come down to the boiler room and they would meet down there for a Friday afternoon get together. And I think there was a little imbibing involved.
Well, you have to talk to Lou Tupin and Pete McConnell. And there was a guy by the name of Sheehan, who we would all leave school via your father's office. Yes, on a Friday afternoon. It was charming. It was
fun. And that's exactly the culture that was carried over, the whole idea to 175, in that we were all friends, and that it didn't matter if you were the custodial staff, the lunchroom staff, the office staff, the teachers, you as the principal, everybody worked together for the betterment of the school community. And I think that was the beauty of what made everything work. But Karen has a good story that she and I can share. Go ahead, Karen, start off.
Well, you can tell this. Well, again, what the other connection to the water was the fact that PS 17, as many know, is on the same street as the ferry dock. And when we were in school in the late 50s, 60s, that was when the prison on Hart Island was active and running. So we didn't pay much attention to it as kids until, I guess, was it 8th grade? It was 8th grade.
Yeah, I think we were kind of feeling our oats in 8th grade and thought we could.
It was 8th grade, or the end of the 8th grade. Yeah.
Ena remembers.
Oh, I remember.
It's impaled in my head. It's just.
And I'm sure your father, God rest.
My father. Well, some of us decided at lunchtime to take a ride on the ferry over to Hart Island, and either none of us had a watch or none of us cared enough about having a watch. Didn't think about the time and the bell ringing, and anyway, the ferry's on its way back, and on the dock are the principal of the school. I think it was a Mr. Goldberg at that time.
Yeah. Right.
I think, Ena, you were there, Lou Tupin, and my father.
Yes.
Well, the one I was most afraid of was my father standing on that dock waiting for us to come back. And no one was too happy. I knew Lou Tupin wasn't happy. Mrs.
Lou
Goldberg in
was-
particular, because, you know, they were responsible, of course, for us. And here we are riding a ferry over to Hart Island. And at that time, I think they were prisoners over in Hart Island. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a classic example of it seemed like a good idea at the time. And you all be listening. We blame Kent Bates. Kent Bates was in our class, and he knew the ferry captain, or his family knew there was some connection why this guy even let us. I mean, who would let a bunch of 13-year-olds on a ferry over to a prison island? Except there was a connection, and we all said sure, and got on it. That
Great
There were a
idea.
whole bunch of you. There were a few of you. There were.
yeah, there were
Yeah. It was
a lot of the graduating class.
Yeah, and it was toward the end of the year. It was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
It was exactly what you did as a senior. And
Bring-
Lou thought it was a joke and a half. He loved it. That was Lou Tupin. I talked to him today, as a matter of fact. So he's doing well. But anyway,
Good.
but he thought that was great.
My father, not so much.
No.
Not laughing, or didn't let on that you were laughing at us when you mowed us down one at a time and said, "I can't believe you did this to each of you." So,
It happened. It's the way it happened.
are we doing, Lauren, on time? Are we supposed to take questions, or? I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
was just gonna say, if we have anyone from the audience who either wants to come on camera and ask a question or contribute a story, happy to bring you on for that. Or, you know, we had some questions in the Q&A in terms of just, Ena, how many years total were you principal at 175?
22 years.
22 years, okay.
22 years, 1980 through 2002. Yeah, as a principal, which I totally did not expect, did not seek, did not expect. That was a tragedy, because the principal at the time, I had lived in Maryland for a time and had taught at Gaithersburg High School, and then we moved back to New York. John was working, I guess, with the Atomic Energy Commission, and then, okay, whatever. But I went back to teaching. And it so happened that there was an opening. My son was about 2.5 at the time, and I was there was an opening at 175, and the then principal, Lucretia Fusco, really had asked me, come and do it, and my mother said, we'll take care of the baby, whatever. All right. So, and I guess it was just before that, about 1980. She was a young woman and she didn't feel well. And school opened, and there was a lot of controversy between the parents, between the teachers, between parents and teachers. And it wasn't a very happy place. And I had come back from Maryland and started to teach in this building. And she became very ill. And the first day of school, she never appeared. Teachers, and we were only about 199 students in the school at the time. And she never appeared. And no one could understand it. And we just went about our business. Some teachers not sharing with other teachers. It was very not happy place. And then school opened and she never appeared. And we had children coming in now under an open school enrollment program from off the island to bus in, because we didn't apply to a federal law at the time. And she never appeared. And I was upstairs, reading teacher. And the then secretary, Miss Hickey, called me and said, could you come? It was 2:00 in the afternoon, down to the office. I did. She said, Miss Fusco's sister-in-law is on the line. I got on the line. I didn't know her or nothing. And she said to me, I have to tell you, Miss Fusco just died. That was the first day school opened. I had no clue what to do. So I called the district office, not knowing anyone. They didn't know me. I was a teacher at 17. They got off the phone, and the next, about an hour, about 4:00, everybody had gone home. I didn't know what to do, but I was helping Miss Hickey. They called and said to me, can you hold the school for a day? We'll send somebody in. And okay, but I need a substitute teacher here. So appeared Pete McConnell to take over my class while I'm down here for the day. And then came 2 days and 3 days. And then by November, I figured, gee, maybe I better get a degree in a master's in supervision and administration, which I did. I went back and did that and then got appointed, and the rest is history. I did not look for this. I had no knowledge or even an indication that I was going to do something like this, but it happened, and that's the way it is. So it was written. What can I say? But that's 22 years I was there as a principal, whoever asked that question.
Joanne Valletta asked the question.
Okay, all right.
Fun memories.
Yeah.
Amy Phillips has a question on the City Island song. Does anyone have the sheet music, or who knows who wrote the song?
Yeah.
I know who wrote the song.
Go ahead, you take it, Barbara.
Well, the reason I know who wrote the song is I'm living in her house.
Oh, there you go.
Myra Walsh's sister,
That's right.
Jeannie, wrote that song, City Island, Star of the Sea, there's no land that's dearer to me, with your many boats galore and your sunny golden shores.
Right, right.
Yeah, she wrote it.
Yeah, I think I may have a copy somewhere. I don't know. I'll look through some stuff, and I'll give it to you, Lauren or Judy, or Barbara, put in some notebook or whatever that you want at the
Be
museum.
great to have it at the museum.
Got it,
Yeah.
got it.
Oh, I'm
Okay,
sure it's there somewhere.
okay.
So,
Tommy knows.
Um,
I don't think, but the lyrics are in the back of Alice Payne's book, I believe.
Oh, are
Really?
they?
Ah,
Okay, good.
We're asking, can you all sing it?
Well, then we have to just go off the air. People will just take, that's a good way to end it, Lauren. We'll just shut us
Right.
down.
Way to drive people away.
That's right, exactly.
Okay. Are there any topics that you think were taught at PS 17 that would surprise people today? I know you talked about sewing. I think that's definitely
yeah.
outdated, but
cooking, Mrs. Hanfman.
Yes, right.
She was our it was called home economics teacher. And 1 week she taught sewing and 1 week she taught cooking. And this sounds crazy, but to this day, I make her show pastry for cream puffs. I didn't know it was show pastry at the time, but I still make it. We made cream puffs. It was. I will not discuss the sewing part of what she did.
Yeah, but the girls took the sewing and the cooking, and the boys did the carpentry.
Correct.
Right.
But we all had to.
Never
sew
the
our
twain
own
should meet. Yes.
dresses.
And now I don't think there are licenses in the state anymore for that. I know for the carpentry, I don't think you can find teachers who do that. I don't think they give licenses. Because it must have something to do with people getting hurt and things, I'm sure.
Well, you could get hurt with a needle and a stove too.
Well, you
Yes.
can get hurt with a lot of things in school.
But
You
that
all-
sewing was horrible. I'll never forget having to sew my graduation dress. I had
That's the other thing,
Oh my.
I agree, Barbara. That was really
right?
torture.
Everybody had to make their own.
Disaster. It was a disaster. I couldn't sew to save my soul. I still can't sew. I knit.
Everybody had to make their own. I had to make my own graduation. That just was a tradition that happily was thrown
I
out.
was going to say your mom was so talented at sewing. She must
Yeah,
have
she
helped
was
you
good.
some. Yeah.
She was. Oh yeah, no, she was incredible.
Yes, she was. Yeah. I remember when we used to have all the plays at school. It
Yeah,
was
she-
your mom, Holly Hill's mother.
Yeah, Mrs.
Mrs. Caffarelli.
Mrs. Caffarella, right?
yeah.
That's right. That's my mother's sister.
Yes.
Her
yes.
son Michael still lives on. My cousin Michael lives on City Island. He worked in. He's a pharmacist, and he used to work at City Island Pharmacy for a while.
Wow.
My cousin Michael. I don't know if he's looking now. If so, Michael, I'll call you tomorrow.
well, we have Michael Cazares. Let's see.
Cazares.
No, no, Cazares, right? Are you kidding?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm not
Michael.
kidding. Hi.
How many hundreds of years ago he lived on
Hawkins Street.
Hawkins Street. He lived
Right.
on-
We were part of the Hawkins Street Club.
That's right, where the
Right.
Friars now live in the same house.
Oh,
That's
really?
Joanne's brother?
Michael,
Yeah, Joanne, I spoke with Joanne just a few hours ago.
you're
Oh,
I don't know.
in
She's
our
in-
class.
I know, she's in Greece. And the funny thing is she spoke about all the things you spoke about.
Oh.
Bushman, the boat, following the boat,
Yeah.
you
yeah.
know, those
How do you
same
like
experience,
that?
the
Oh,
music.
wow.
Michael,
Yeah,
where are
Tales
you
of
now?
Hoffman.
Michael.
Michael, where are
in
you?
Kirkland, near Seattle.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I've been here for a long time.
I couldn't believe it when I saw your name here, Michael.
Yeah,
Good Lord. That's 100 years ago. I mean,
I think maybe that or something like that, 200, something like that.
approaching that, Michael, approaching that.
But
Please
I remember
tell
somebody,
Joanne I said hello.
okay, I will. I remember hearing, learning something, well, you were asking, what else did they teach us? Dance, we had dance lessons.
Yes,
Remember.
yes, that's right.
Yeah, I've been trying to forget that for the last 100 years.
Wow, it certainly left an imprint. You're right. He's right.
Mrs. Mulligan teaching us the foxtrot.
Yes, that's right. And square dancing and all, yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And
I
also
forgot
somebody taught me empty barrels make the most noise.
I know.
Is that a famous, I mean, I remember that being told that. I didn't talk for 2 years after that.
Oh, my goodness. Isn't this incredible?
All right, Michael, I'm going to bring in Arlene Ricciardo.
Ah, Mert.
Let's see.
Is that Arlene Sonier?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Bring me back to the names.
Maybe it's not working. I'm trying. Arlene, are you there?
See a picture
I'm
down.
sorry, I got it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was thinking of when I was in, especially 8th grade, it was funny with Miss Mulligan. She was really strict, and I happened to have a class with boys that were really jokesters and everything like that. She had her hand full. And I remember when you were in the 8th grade, we had the tables because we were grown up now. We didn't have the little chairs and,
Right.
things to sit on. And I know how many times some of the boys would have to sit under the desk. Charlie Hawkins, some
But
of
in
the
that
other,
room,
Frankie Laval, all of them under the desk, all the boys, because they
yeah, she had
misbehaved.
this marble table in the front that had an area in it. When you were bad, that's where you put under that. You're 100% right. In that little under the table.
But she actually put them sometimes under the actual tables where they were sitting,
Yeah, oh,
and
I remember the
it
front
was,
of the room.
I had quite a class.
Well, I remember when I was in the 8th grade, she did that to one boy. I'm not saying names, and he just stayed there. It was lunch hour. She forgot he was there. And then the mother came to school looking for him, and he was under that front thing. Yeah.
And going back years and years, I remember my mother telling me the story of Miss Fitzpatrick calling my mother and asking where my brother Gus was. Well, my mother says, well, she's in school. He's in school. So she said, no, it's not, because she knew, I think, every kid in the school, where they were and where.
Oh, yeah.
And so my mother said, him and Alan Holzberg had a pigeon coop in the
Oh,
lot on Hawkins Street that used to be the lot diagonally across from your mother's house, Ena.
yeah, where Mrs. Katz lived, right.
And in that big lot, and they were over there because it was raining, and they were underneath the pigeon coop because they were worried about their pigeons. But Miss Fitzpatrick knew where everybody was at any
Oh, yeah.
given time. You didn't want to
yeah,
play
she-
hooky with her, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Good memories in that school.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Arlene.
letting me share.
Of course. All right, we
Thank
have
you for
2 more
sharing.
people that we can fit in before we close. I'm going to go to Richard DeLala.
DeLeo. Richard DeLeo. It's
Yeah.
got to be, that's not spelled right. Is that D-E, it should be DELAYO. It's not DeLala. It should be DeLeo, right?
We'll see.
It might be a different Richard.
Well, I don't know that name, which is unusual. I'm thinking Richard DeLeo, I remember. He's not answering.
Are you there? Going once, going twice.
I think I scared him away.
That's not me. Okay. Then we'll go to the last person, who is Barbara Delancik. Let's see.
Oh, Barbara.
Oh, Richard lives up here on, at the, where United Boatyard used to be, at the foot of Carroll Street.
Is that not?
Oh,
Well, anyway.
He,
Hi, start video. Can I do that? Hi,
Hi, Barbara.
thank everybody. This is great. I feel like I went to the school. My son was at PS 175. I never was at PS 17. I thought I'd a wonderful video, if I send to anybody who's interested, of Ena and Tommy Nye talking at the museum in 2012. Do you remember that, Ena?
Oh, Lord.
It was so much fun. I think you were talking about your wonderful principal Fitzpatrick with the jangly bracelets and how you were both terrified of her.
Oh, yeah, but I remember Tommy in my class. Tommy sat in room 100. That was the room I was in, where when you walk in, and he was one of the tallest kids in the class. So he was in the first or second row, way in the back. He had such a sense of humor. There's something happened that I cannot repeat, but he was so funny. Tommy was he had such a sense of humor. Laugh at him all the time. Him and Marguerite Chadwick Jr. Marguerite Chadwick was another one with a sense of humor. I remember her coming to school late one day, every day after lunch, she was late. And I said to her one day, "Why are you late this time?" And she said, "Well, there was this hot dog, on my way back to school." And I said, "Marguerite, sit down." Just sit down, Marguerite. It was this hot dog. She and Tommy, they weren't in the same class, but I remember those two stand out as being really sharp, funny people. I still laugh when I think of them. I'm sorry, Tommy, I don't laugh in a negative way. I laugh in a,
They both of them still contribute a lot, even though Marguerite's living down south now.
Right.
She designed the current. She did the logo for the Oyster Project. She's been invaluable. She's still really a clam digger.
She's very bright. I remember her. See, I see everybody as little people. That's my problem.
Yeah.
I see how bright she was. And Tommy, I will always remember him in that room. He was with a group of kids who.
Actually, we're closed, of course, but at some point in the spring, we're going to be opening up with an oral history project, and there's a whole section on schools. Judy's been working on this with Mary McIntyre and me, and we've videoed and recorded people who talked in 1984, and there's a whole section on the school, and it's fabulous. We've got all the old pictures. Barbara, you were helpful in a lot of that, and so we'd love to have anybody who was a student there come back. Some people come back and they walk into a room where, the principal was, and they kind of shudder at the memory, but mostly it's a good experience. And, if anybody wants to come back in the meantime, maybe one or two at a time, but I'd really recommend, and, when we get cleaned up in the spring, that to welcome back anybody who ever went to school there. One lady showed up about some years ago after the front of the building burned. Remember that? There was somebody set the front of the building on fire, and Ed Sadler and Tommy and Jeannie Pizzone and I were inside kind of cleaning up and getting ready for reconstruction. And this guy knocked at the front door, and there was a lady at the door. It was 85 years old, older than us, Ena. And she said,
I know your birthday.
She was related to B.F. Wood, the shipbuilder. She had documents for us. She was never going to be back on City Island. Could she come in? And she walked down the hallway, her walker. And I had a picture, a portrait. I came out and said to Jeannie, "Who is this?" And Jeannie said, "Oh, that's Mrs. Dill." And so the lady said, "Oh my gosh, I was there her first year." And Jeannie said, "I was there her last year." And these two women, generation apart, were just excited talking about Mrs. Dale. It was really fun. Nice.
I see there's another name on this, Janet Borg. Janet, I don't know if she can hear me. She was a terrific first grade teacher.
I hear you, Ena.
There
Can you hear
go,
me?
Janet. She was
I want you to know that City Island will always be part of my life. I
Well,
taught from 1966
that's
to
right.
76
That's right.
and have gone back to the island many times to celebrate anniversaries in restaurants on City Island. And I have wonderful memories, and I'm so grateful to Facebook because I've been able to reconnect with my former students.
Oh, that's
Great.
excellent. He was an excellent first grade teacher. Really super. Really super.
Well, thank you.
Haven't heard
I
from
had
you.
the luckiest day in my life was when I got notified that I was teaching at 190 Fordham Street.
Ah,
And I had no idea where it was. I thought it was near Fordham Road.
there you go.
And I called the operator. In those days, you could call an operator. And
Yeah.
I said to her, "Where is Fordham Street?"
Mm.
And she said, "It's City Island."
And you
I
could.
had never been to City Island.
Oh,
That Sunday, my parents and I took a bus ride from Pelham Parkway
to City
to
Island.
City Island, and I fell in love with the community. And as I said, it's going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life.
That's a nice thing to hear. It really is.
Well, I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
I think we
And
all
Ena, you were one of a kind.
don't want to hear any more than that.
You were there when I started teaching with Barbara Ragazzi.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she passed away. I remember Gloria Mazursky.
She passed away. Yeah.
Yeah, Lou Tupin, and I'm glad to hear that he's alive and
Yeah,
well. Tell him
holding-
I said hello.
Oh, I certainly will. He called today or yesterday, and I have to call him back. I will definitely do that. And see, who else did you teach with? Gloria
Do
Mazursky.
you ever hear from Fran Carolla?
She sort of. We haven't heard recently from Fran. Judy, have you heard?
I get Christmas cards from Fran,
Okay.
but she hasn't, we have luncheons that we get together from the teachers and the staff from 175, usually twice a year. Of course, we couldn't do it during COVID.
Right.
And she has not attended the last couple of years,
Yeah, right.
the luncheons, but I still do get Christmas cards from her.
Right.
What about Angela Bocchicchio?
Oh, God,
Angela
yeah.
Adler.
Angela Adler. Oh, I remember
Yeah.
when she used to teach the children how to say her name, Bocchicchio. She used to pretend she was making a bow. My name is Miss Bow, and then a key in the door, and then an O. And I just love that so much.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Angela's well, she's good. She's married
Yes.
and she lives in Rybrook,
Right,
and she has one son.
Matthew.
And she always comes to our luncheons,
Yeah.
so we do get to,
Yeah, we-
see.
Yeah,
her
I'd
and
like
catch up
to
with
know
her.
about these luncheons. I mean, obviously, they're not going to happen for a while, but I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's great.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
send,
do that.
if you send your email, maybe
To
to
Judy.
Ena and then Ena, you could
Yeah.
pass it to me if you could get in touch with, if you're in touch with Ena.
Right,
I could connect you too also.
perfect. That's good.
All right, Janet, I'm gonna put you back on mute. We're gonna wrap up because we're already, I can't believe at 8:40.
Okay.
And I was worried we
Oh,
might.
Lord. Put any more names out here. Look at this.
Yeah. Oh, this was so lovely.
It was fun.
Incredible.
It was fun. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you all for coming and thank you all for joining. We had over 60 people on tonight and this will be
Wow.
posted again as all the other ones on YouTube. Please go to our website. Please sign up for our last and final webinar on the America's Cup, past and present. We're going to have an America's Cup winner, Dick Sadler, on. Unfortunately, we are not in the running this year, but City Island has a role to play in the previous one. So
Thank you, Lauren. You did an excellent job. You really did.
Yes.
I had some good teachers. So.
There you go.
right. Thank you all.
Barbara, I'll talk to you. Take care. Both Barbaras. Bye-bye now.
Everybody.